When Maya Angelou speaks, the world listens. Her words carry wisdom, courage, and a depth that reaches across generations. Today, we're uncovering 5 unforgettable life lessons from Maya Angelou's speeches, lessons that can reshape how you see yourself, others, and the journey you're on. Stay with me, because the 5th lesson might just change the way you live forever. When we listen to Maya Angelou speak, there's one lesson she places above all others: the lesson of courage. She believed courage is the foundation of every virtue. Without it, she said, you cannot consistently practice kindness, honesty, or even love. And when you think about it, she's right. It takes courage to be kind in a world that doesn't always reward kindness. It takes courage to tell the truth when lies seem easier, and it certainly takes courage to love, because love makes us vulnerable to rejection, heartbreak, and loss. For Maya, courage wasn't about being fearless. It was about choosing to move forward in spite of fear. In her own life, she had countless reasons to retreat or stay silent. She faced hardship, prejudice, and unimaginable challenges. But she chose courage again and again. And that decision shaped her into the powerful voice we still hear today. Courage is what allows you to stand tall when the world tries to shrink you. It's what pushes you to chase dreams that feel too big. It's what gives you the strength to speak the truth when silence would feel safer. And the beautiful part is that every time you act with courage, you step into your highest version of yourself that is braver, stronger, and more capable than you realized. Maya's lesson is simple but profound. Don't wait until you're ready. Don't wait until the fear disappears. Readiness is something that often comes after you take the first step. The very act of stepping boldly into the unknown is what builds strength. Without courage, dreams remain locked inside us. But with courage, even the impossible begins to feel within reach. Think about your own life. Maybe at work, courage is raising your hand in a meeting when your voice is trembling. Maybe it's asking for that promotion you know you've earned, or speaking up when something isn't fair. In relationships, courage could mean opening your heart again after being hurt, or having that difficult conversation you've been avoiding. In your personal dreams, courage is finally starting the business, writing the book, or applying for the opportunity you've been putting off. And sometimes, courage shows up in the simplest ways: getting out of bed on a hard morning, choosing to show up even when life feels heavy. So pause for a moment and ask yourself, where in your life are you being called to practice courage? Is it in your career, your relationships, your health, or your personal growth? Maya reminds us that courage is not a one-time act, but a muscle that grows stronger every time you use it. Each decision to choose courage over fear lays the foundation for kindness, honesty, and love to truly thrive. Today, let courage guide you. Let fear exist, but don't let it have the final say. When you act with courage, you don't just transform your own life, you give others permission to do the same. And that, perhaps, is one of the greatest legacies Maya Angelou left us: the reminder that courage isn't something distant or reserved for heroes. It's something we can choose every single day. Maya Angelou once said, "You alone are enough. You have nothing to prove to anybody." At first glance, those words may seem simple, but when you let them sink in, you realize they carry a power that can change the way you live your life. To say you are enough is to remind yourself that your value does not depend on someone else's approval, achievements, or comparisons. Your worth simply exists because you exist. Yet, in today's world, self-acceptance is one of the hardest lessons to practice. We live in a culture of constant comparison. Every time we scroll through social media, we see carefully curated highlights of other people's lives: perfect vacations, flawless appearances, endless accomplishments. It's easy to look at those images and feel like we don't measure up. Without realizing it, we start to believe the lie that we are not enough unless we look a certain way, earn a certain income, or achieve a certain status. But Maya's words cut through that noise. She reminds us that real confidence, the kind that lasts, doesn't come from likes, followers, or applause. It begins with recognizing your own worth independent of anyone else's opinion. Self-acceptance is revolutionary because it frees you from the endless cycle of seeking validation. It gives you permission to rest in who you are, without apology. Think about the people in your life who radiate true confidence, not arrogance, not ego, but quiet confidence. They walk into a room with ease, not because they're trying to impress anyone, but because they are comfortable in their own skin. That's the power of self-acceptance. It shines outward, creating a sense of peace and authenticity that others can feel. Maya herself embodied this lesson. She was tall, bold, outspoken, and deeply authentic. She didn't fit neatly into society's boxes, and she didn't try to. Instead, she embraced her unique voice, her history, her struggles, and her triumphs. She turned them into poetry, into art, into wisdom that continues to touch lives across the globe. She became a living example of what happens when you embrace who you are rather than trying to become who others think you should be. But self-acceptance doesn't mean settling. It doesn't mean you stop growing, learning, or striving. Instead, it means that you grow from a place of love, not lack. It means you no longer chase perfection to feel worthy, you pursue growth because you already are worthy. That shift changes everything. When you accept yourself, you stop competing with others, and you begin focusing on becoming the best version of you. So how do we practice self-acceptance in a world that constantly pressures us to be more, do more, and have more? It begins with small, daily choices. One powerful tool is affirmations. When you wake up, take a moment to speak life over yourself. Say, I am enough. I am worthy of love. I am capable. I am valuable. At first, it might feel awkward or even untrue. But the more you repeat it, the more your mind begins to believe it, and the more your actions begin to align with that truth. Another step is to remind yourself of your unique strengths. Instead of focusing on what you lack, focus on what you bring. Maybe you're a good listener, a creative thinker, a problem solver, or someone who brings joy to others. Write those strengths down, keep them visible, and return to them when self-doubt creeps in. Most importantly, give yourself grace. Self-acceptance isn't about perfection, it's about patience. It's about being kind to yourself on the days you fall short, just as you would be kind to a friend. Maya Angelou often said, do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better. That's what self-acceptance looks like in action, meeting yourself where you are, while still moving toward where you want to be. So pause for a moment and ask yourself, do you believe you are enough, just as you are? Or are you still waiting for something, a job, a relationship, an achievement to validate your worth? Maya's voice is clear and steady. You don't have to wait. You are already enough. And the sooner you embrace that truth, the freer, happier, and more confident your life will become. One of Maya Angelou's most unforgettable teachings is wrapped in a single sentence. A sentence that has traveled across generations and found its way into classrooms, speeches, and conversations all over the world. She said, people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did. But people will never forget how you made them feel. At first, those words might sound simple, almost too simple. But when you sit with them, you realize how much truth they carry. Think about your own life. Can you remember every detail of what your teachers taught you, or the exact words a friend spoke years ago? Probably not. But you can remember the teacher who made you believe in yourself, or the friend who made you feel safe, loved, and seen. That feeling, that emotional imprint, is what lingers long after the words fade away. Maya understood that every interaction we have carries weight, whether we realize it or not. Each time you meet someone, whether it's a close family member or a stranger you'll never see again, you leave behind an impression. That impression isn't just about your actions or your words, it's about the energy you bring, the way you make them feel. And this is where responsibility comes in. Because if we have the power to leave someone with joy, comfort, or encouragement, then we also carry the responsibility to use that influence wisely. Now, this doesn't mean you have to be perfect. It doesn't mean you'll never get frustrated or say the wrong thing. What it does mean is being intentional. Choosing kindness when it would be easier to be dismissive. Choosing empathy when it would be easier to judge. Choosing respect even in moments of disagreement. These small choices add up, and they shape the way people experience you. Let me share a thought. Sometimes it's not the grand gestures that change someone's life. It's the small, ordinary moments. It's the cashier at the grocery store who smiles and makes you feel like more than just another customer. It's the colleague who takes a moment to encourage you before a big presentation. It's the friend who listens without judgment when you need to vent. These moments may seem insignificant in the moment, but for the person receiving them, they can mean everything, and the opposite is true as well. A careless word, a dismissive glance, or a lack of empathy can stay with someone for years. Most of us can remember times when someone made us feel small or invisible. And those memories sting long after the actual words are forgotten. That's why Maya's lesson is so powerful. She's reminding us that our influence is real. even if we don't always see the impact, so pause and think for a moment. Who in your life left a lasting mark, not because of what they said or did, but because of how they made you feel? Maybe it was a mentor who believed in you when you didn't believe in yourself. Maybe it was a parent who showed up consistently, or a stranger who extended unexpected kindness. Their actions may blur in your memory, but the feeling they gave you remains crystal clear. Now turn the question around. How will people remember you? Not the exact words you spoke, not the things you owned or achieved, but the way you made them feel in your presence. Did you make them feel valued? Did you make them feel heard? Did you make them feel like they mattered? Maya Angelou challenges us to carry this awareness into our daily lives. Influence is not something reserved for celebrities, leaders, or public figures. Influence belongs to every single one of us. You influence your children, your friends, your coworkers, even strangers who cross your path for just a moment. That influence, when handled with care, becomes a quiet kind of legacy. So the next time you step into a room, pick up your phone, or speak to someone face to face, remember Maya's words. Your voice might fade, your actions may be forgotten, but the feeling you leave behind will live on in the heart of another person. And perhaps that is the truest measure of a life well lived, the ability to make others feel seen, valued, and loved simply because they crossed paths with you. Maya Angelou often spoke about forgiveness, and one of her most powerful teachings was this: holding on to anger is like poisoning yourself. You think you're punishing the other person, but in reality, you're the one carrying the weight. Resentment doesn't just sit quietly in the background of your life, it seeps into your thoughts, your emotions, even your health. It keeps you tied to the pain of the past, long after the original wound has been inflicted. But Maya made something very clear: forgiveness is not about excusing behavior. It's not about saying what someone did to you was acceptable or pretending that it didn't hurt. Forgiveness is about freeing your heart. It's about choosing to no longer carry the burden of anger, bitterness, and pain. It's about reclaiming your peace, your energy, and your joy. Think about it this way: when you hold on to anger, it's almost like carrying a backpack full of stones. At first, you may not notice the weight, but as the days, weeks, and years go by, that backpack becomes heavier and heavier. It slows you down. It makes every step harder than it needs to be. Forgiveness is the act of setting that backpack down and walking forward lighter, freer, and stronger. Of course, forgiveness is not easy. Sometimes the wounds we carry are deep, and the people who hurt us may never apologize. Maya herself faced incredible injustices in her lifetime, and yet she chose forgiveness again and again, not because those wrongs didn't matter, but because she refused to let them define or control her. She understood that anger steals more from us than it ever takes from the person we're angry at. When you forgive, you reclaim your power. You stop letting the actions of others dictate your emotions. You stop giving them the authority to control your present. Forgiveness is not weakness, it's strength. It takes tremendous courage to let go of something that has scarred you. But when you do, you create space for healing. Think about your own life for a moment. Can you remember a time when you forgave someone, truly forgave them, and felt the shift in your energy? Maybe it was a friend who betrayed your trust, or a family member who let you down, or even yourself for a mistake you couldn't stop replaying in your mind. The moment you released that weight, didn't you feel lighter? Didn't you feel a sense of peace wash over you, even if the situation itself hadn't changed? That is the power of forgiveness. It transforms you from the inside out. And it's not just emotional freedom. Forgiveness strengthens relationships. When we let go of grudges, we open the door to healthier connections built on trust and compassion. It also improves our well-being. Studies have shown that people who practice forgiveness experience less stress, lower blood pressure, and greater overall happiness. Maya's wisdom wasn't just spiritual, it was deeply practical. Now, forgiveness doesn't always mean reconciliation. Sometimes the healthiest choice is to forgive someone and still create distance. To release the anger without reopening the relationship. Forgiveness is for you, not necessarily for them. It's the key that unlocks your heart from a prison you may not have even realized you were in. So here's the question I invite you to reflect on. Who in your life are you still carrying in that backpack of anger? Is there someone you need to forgive, not for their sake, but for yours? What would it feel like to finally put that weight down and walk into your future with freedom? Maya Angelou's voice echoes through this lesson. Forgiveness is not about excusing what happened, it's about choosing yourself, choosing peace, choosing healing, and choosing to live a life unchained from the bitterness of the past. When we think about Maya Angelou's life, one word rises above all the rest: love. Her greatest legacy wasn't just her poetry, her activism, or her countless accomplishments. It was the way she used words to pour love into the world. Through her books, her speeches, her interviews, and even her everyday presence, she reminded people of their worth, their dignity, and their power. She didn't just tell stories. She infused them with truth, compassion, and a kind of healing energy that continues to touch lives long after her voice has gone silent. Maya believed in the power of storytelling, because she knew that stories carry more than entertainment. Stories carry healing. They carry wisdom. They carry the ability to connect people who might otherwise feel divided. Every poem she wrote and every truth she spoke was rooted in love, a love not limited to romance, but a love that embraced humanity itself. She had lived through pain, loss, and injustice, yet she chose to transform those experiences into words that uplifted and inspired others. That choice is what makes her legacy so extraordinary. But here's the lesson she leaves for us. Your story matters too. You don't need to be a world-renowned poet or stand on a global stage for your story to carry weight. Every one of us has experiences, lessons, and perspectives that can inspire healing and transformation in others. Too often, we dismiss our own stories, believing they're too ordinary, too messy, or too painful to share. But Maya showed us that even broken pieces can become art. She taught us that when we share our truth, we give others permission to embrace their own. Think about it: how many times have you heard someone's story and suddenly felt less alone? Maybe it was a friend who shared their struggles with anxiety, and it made you realize you weren't the only one. Maybe it was a mentor who told you about their failures before their successes, and it gave you hope to keep going. Stories connect us in a way statistics and facts never can. They remind us of our shared humanity. That's why love and storytelling are inseparable. To tell your story honestly is an act of love. It's an offering. You're saying, here is who I am. Here is where I've been. Maybe my journey can help light the path for yours. That is exactly what Maya Angelou did throughout her life. She took her pain, her joy, her lessons, and her wisdom, and she transformed them into a gift for the world. And because she did, her legacy of love continues to ripple across generations. So now the question comes to you. How will you use your story? How will you take the lessons you've learned, the struggles, the triumphs, the moments of growth, and turn them into something that leaves a mark of love on this world? You may never know the full impact of sharing your truth. Sometimes the smallest act of vulnerability, the simplest story, can be the very thing someone else needs to hear too. Keep moving forward. Maya Angelou showed us that storytelling is not just about words, it's about legacy. It's about choosing to leave behind more than possessions or accomplishments. It's about leaving behind love, expressed through truth. And every single one of us has the power to do that, starting right where we are. So if Maya and words have inspired you today, take this as your reminder to honor your own story. Share it with courage. Share it with love. And watch how it creates ripples you may never fully see. If this message touched you, I invite you to carry it forward. Share this video with someone who needs encouragement. Hit the like button, drop a comment below with your favorite Maya Angelou quote, and subscribe for more life-changing wisdom. Together, let's continue the legacy of love and storytelling that Maya Angelou so beautifully left behind.